Alrighty, welcome to Change for the People, Episode 2. We're so excited to be here today. My name is Max Bach. I'm a former Kamala staffer and founder of Change for the People. Change for the People is an organization dedicated to changing the way we campaign. We don't want to just show up for elections and ask for votes. We want to listen to the people. We want to hear their stories and amplify their voices. We want to discuss the issues in the community. We want to figure out the problems so we can come up with the solutions. Our mission is to engage, inspire, and empower everyday people to become a part of the change. Today, we're going to talk about a very important issue in America, youth voting. We'll be speaking to a young activist who is leading the fight in Arkansas. We're going to hear about his story and work in one of the reddest states in America. We're going to talk about why the Democratic Party continues to lose young voters. We're also going to discuss the 2024 election, possible solutions, and look ahead to the midterms. Finally, we will discuss the tragedy in Minneapolis. All right, Billy Cook, we are thrilled to have you here today. Can you tell us about yourself? Tell us about your background a little bit and your roles within the Democratic Party and just activism and everything.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me on today, Max. Yes, my name is Billy Cook. I'm a lifelong Northwest Arkansan. I was originally born in Gravette, Arkansas, all the way up in Benton County in the far northwest corner of the state. But since 2017, I've made my home in Fayetteville, now our state's second largest city, often considered a liberal enclave in a very red area. I got involved in politics in high school before I could even vote. I founded or co-founded our high school's Young Democrats chapter in an extremely red hometown of Gravette, 80-20 Republican voting town, very, very unfriendly environment to anyone with any kind of liberal inclinations. And even before I could vote, I was knocking doors in 2015 for Bernie Sanders, because even though he was someone in his 70s, he was someone with a message that resonated to someone who was in high school, someone who couldn't even vote at the time, because he was talking about the things that mattered to me. And so I still had the courage and the gumption to go door to door in my incredibly Republican hometown on behalf of this 70-year-old I have never even met. And that experience got me hooked. I, kept working on state house races, city mayor races, state senate races, got my first paid political gig in 2020 working on Celeste Williams' race for U.S. Congress. And now I've had the opportunity to work on all sorts of, judicial races, nonpartisan elections, Fayetteville City Council races, seats all the way from the federal level all the way down to the local level, city school board, things like that. So I've been able to get a full experience of what it's like to work on campaigns at many different levels here in the state of Arkansas. All the while I've been doing that, I have been, continuing my work with the Young Democrats of Arkansas. I'm a poor kid from rural Benton County, Arkansas. An organization like this gave me so many opportunities that I would not have otherwise been able to. I've been able to go places and meet people and have fascinating conversations with people on their front porches or in some of the biggest cities in America because of the Young Democrats of Arkansas giving me those opportunities. While I've done all of my work in the Democratic Party, which is truly all volunteer work, what is near and dear to my heart is housing advocacy. Arkansas has very bare bones housing laws as it relates to homeowners, but especially people who are renters, even though a third of the people in Arkansas are renters. I grew up pretty poor. Parents were always facing things like eviction and, substandard conditions, rats, mice, mold, faulty electrical wiring, you name it. And I in 2020, when I got off one of my campaigns that I was working on, part of the bad things about working on campaigns is that your job ends on election day, whether you win or lose. And so when you have that,
I know all about it.
Oh yeah, it's so true.
Yeah.
No matter what kind of level you're working on, win or lose, you are out of a job. And so I got behind on my rent. My landlord at the time tried to evict me. This was during COVID. And I found this group called Arkansas Renters United, which was able to get me in touch with legal services and like Legal Aid of Arkansas and get me a hearing with a judge for my eviction, and they were able
Oh,
to buy
wow.
me time to pay
Yeah.
back the rent that I owed and get my eviction dropped against me. And so I was able to stay housed. And this was just an organization that didn't know me from Adam and helped me keep a roof over my head, which, in a state like this where the renters always lose, that is such an invaluable thing. And oh, sorry.
No, 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 that's good. That's such a good personal story, and it's so powerful because you have such a big journey that's kind of in your arc to becoming where you are today as president of the Young Democrats, right, of Arkansas. And renters' rights and in fighting for the people and everything is such an important issue, and that's so cool that you're doing it. I mean, you're doing so many things. How are you doing all this? Like, you ever sleep?
I do sleep.
Okay, okay.
I try to get my 7 to 8 hours. I try to get plenty of vitamin C.
Yeah,
Try to get hydrated whenever I can. I have some
definitely.
water here
Okay,
with me now.
definitely. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. So let's get into, as president of the Young Democrats of Arkansas, you are essentially leading the next generation of voters. What is your approach to engaging young voters across the state?
Well, you have to do everything at once, truly. There is no one single way to reach everybody. You can't reach everybody on social media. You can't reach everybody by knocking on their door. You can't reach everybody by going to an event and meeting them there. You have to do everything at once, actually. You have to be posting on social media about what we're doing at events that are near. You have to text people and invite them out to come to events. You have to knock on people's doors to meet them. What I found, I've gone to 20 of Arkansas' 75 counties now. I hope to get to all 75. And what I found is that you have to just go to people because especially in politics, there is no way to build it and let them come. You
Yeah,
have to go and invite people. And so I've been jet setting all across the state, going to places big and small so I can get a handful of people together and get them organized into a Young Democrats chapter, which is
yeah,
the vehicle to get people in that school or in that city or in that county or community involved, registering voters, going to knock on doors for candidates, a gateway into the Democratic Party. And so going around and setting up these chapters is pivotal to us. And the only way we do this is by going around to
yeah.
people in communities big and small all over the state. There is no easy way to do that, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think people who've been on campaigns and everything can understand that. And I mean, I've done it as an organizer and done a lot of field work and everything, but you leading the entire chapter of the Young Democrats of Arkansas is just overly impressive and such a tough just job because there's so many different pieces, moving pieces to it. And then you have also got to like deal with all the people. You've got the county leaders, you've got the Democratic Party, you've got community members and everything, you've got volunteers. So I really applaud you for doing it. And I think it's really impressive. And yeah, so keep up the good work. And that's really good knowledge for us because we need to know how to engage young people better, right? And we need to know an overall strategy as we'll see more of this of the numbers. I'll put them up in a little bit. So yeah, so okay, what are some of the most rewarding parts of leading the Young Democrats of Arkansas? Like, what are some of the things you enjoy the most out of this position?
Mm. I would say, the things that we can do as a united organization. Actually, as of yesterday, we created our 11th new chapter since I became
Oh
president
wow,
last
yeah,
year, last April at Harbor High in Springdale, Arkansas.
okay,
And and so we have, worked to dramatically grow the organization as much as we can. But the whole point of that is so we can get our different chapters together to work on big projects across the state.
hmm,
One of the things that really inspired me was this last November. We were able to get all of our chapters across the state when SNAP funding was under threat because of the Republican shutdown.
hmm,
We were able to have our chapters conduct a food drive across the state to raise food items for people and their pets. We
hmm.
had over half the organization participate in this across the state, and we raised over 1,600 food items for
Oh
people
wow,
all across. And Arkansas Tech University in Russellville won the contest that we had. And I was able to give them an award, and people were fed. all across the state of Arkansas because of that collective action of people coming together at high schools and colleges
Yeah.
and cities. And so that was beautiful to see.
Yeah, that's terrific. And it's, to me, it's so cool when you can do organizing and if it's political, but you can also create these other parts of organize, community organizing and political organizing go hand in hand, obviously, right? But when you can put it together, bring people together for this, for the common good, and you see tangible results, as we, a lot of times we don't get the tangible results right away in political organizing, right? But to be able to do that and to help so many people is really just special to me. Yeah. So it, to me, that's something I can tell that drives you to work these long hours because the work is tedious, right?
Extremely tedious, oftentimes. And, we're all volunteers. I'm a volunteer as the
Yep.
state president. All of our chapter leaders are volunteers.
Yep.
But the thing is, unless we're a political organization that is also involved in the community, we will never continue to make any strides. How can we ever
Right.
ask for somebody's vote if we can't even feed them?
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Because that truly shows you're in it for the right reasons, right? Because if you're showing up to do that, you care enough versus just showing up for a photo op or showing up to get the, you know, the affiliation or the attention. You're actually showing up because you want to help people. So, yes, absolutely. So, can you tell me a story where you either reached a voter or inspired someone or a group to get involved who had never gotten involved before or may have been hesitant or had, they just, sometimes there's a fear of getting involved or they don't know if they want to, but can you tell maybe a time when you had to convince somebody or you just saw like something happen from your work where you inspired someone to get out of here and do the work with you or to become a volunteer?
Hmm. Too many times to actually name, actually.
Yeah.
Um, I will say, another big community project that we've worked on as the Young Democrats, and this was back in during COVID when I wasn't even the president, but we did a big eviction project across the state where we went to people or mailed them documents if they were facing eviction.
Okay.
That would be able to help them, turn in the right documentation and either declare under the CDC eviction moratorium that existed at the time,
Hmm.
or to be able to get rental assistance. And we were able to help people keep their housing as the Young Democrats of Arkansas. We ended up we called it eviction intervention. We tried to intervene in close to 2,000 evictions across the state of Arkansas in
Oh,
counties big and
wow.
small. By just either going to people directly and giving them
Yeah.
the documents or mailing them in parcels, which, a lot of the time it's sort of like a message in a bottle. You don't know if they actually got it to actually
Yes.
get the help, but it's better than nothing. So, being able to get young people together to keep other people housed when nobody else was doing it, the state of Arkansas.
Such a huge accomplishment.
I mean, the state of Arkansas sure as hell wasn't knocking on people's doors to say, "Hey, here's how you can keep your housing."
Well,
It
of
was just
course not.
it was a bunch of ragtag 20 somethings. That
Yeah.
was unbelievable. Well, there's that. And then recently, another recent example is we just created a Young Democrats chapter that is based in Harrison, Arkansas.
Oh my
After
gosh.
I went there and talked with people and tried to get contacts, a group of young people reached back out to me and said, "Hey, we have already elected leaders for our Young Democrats chapter, and we want to
Mhm.
be official." And so I was able to get them their documentation together, and they are now calling themselves the Young Democrats of the Ozarks. And they're covering a large portion of counties across the north part of Arkansas, which historically has been a place where, liberals and progressives like us have
Never
not been able
go.
to tread.
Not at all.
And now we have a group that is organizing right out of Harrison, and that happened within the last month. Um,
Wow. I mean, if you can organize in Harrison and start a chapter there, you can literally do that anywhere because that's got to be one of the reddest parts of course, not the state, but just in America. And Harrison is known all over the country for what they're known for, right? So to be able to
mhm.
go in there and do that, and it just shows like what you're doing is working.
I hope it works. It's one thing to, get a group of people together and fill out paperwork to become a Young Democrats chapter. It's a
Yes.
whole other battle to actually get them out to do work, register
Yeah.
people to vote, get people to volunteer, do more
Yeah.
community service projects.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. But you got the first step and you're able to organize well enough to get all these young adults together who wanted to work towards what you're talking about, right? So that's something we haven't done before. So, and I have a friend who's from Harrison and she would tell me stories about Harrison. So, just the fact that you're able to do it, it gives me hope and it'll give all the listeners hope. If you look up Harrison, Arkansas, you'll see the history of it and you'll see a lot of this stuff going on. And I know a lot of people don't go to Harrison. So that is huge right there. And I'm going to tell people about that because we talk about different parts of Arkansas and everything. And so, yes, that is very impressive. So, okay, as hard as it is to believe, we used to be a blue state before you were born, and I was a teenager, right? Because I'm much older than you. So when we had Bill Clinton bumpers and Pryor and everything, what are some things Arkansas has to do before we at least turn purple? Like before we at least like to get to be the next Georgia, right? What do we have to do before that can happen, in your opinion?
I think we need 10 times as much on the ground grassroots organizing than we have now.
I
Uh,
agree. Yeah.
I think we need to use that kind. So, first things first, you need to build a strong base of people that will do this work.
Yeah.
Secondly, you need to go out and register all the masses of people who are not registered to
Yep.
vote or who
Yep.
do not vote, and then say, hey, we are the party that is going to make sure that you don't have to choose between dying and healthcare
Mm-hmm.
or rent and childcare. We're the party that wants to make sure that you have more money in your pocket and that your day-to-day liberties are not being curbed,
Mm-hmm.
which is what we're seeing under this one-party monstrosity that we have here in Arkansas right now. I think it's going to take more education, but
Yep.
not education in the sense of the classroom. It takes us civically educating each other to be able to say, hey, are you registered to vote? Have you talked to
Yeah.
your other friends about registering to vote? Have you thought
Yeah.
about these issues? And then, thinking about Arkansas, we need to stop or at least avoid the urge to nationalize every single election.
Right.
I find myself knocking doors for people running for city council or mayor or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing people ask sometimes is Republican or Democrat at the door, even though
Yeah.
these are nonpartisan races. People
Yeah.
will ask their opinion about issues that are completely untied to city government or county government, like abortion, or they'll ask about problems that are going on in Washington and not even pay a mind to the fact that we have a lot of those same problems out of Little Rock or out of your
Yep.
county courthouse. And
Yep.
so we have to get back to localizing our elections too.
Oh, yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And I mean, I served 2 years as vice chair of the Sebastian County Democratic Party, just like when you were vice chair of the Washington County Democratic Party. And I think we talked about some of this stuff and how important all these things are. And I think you really hit it on the head too. Voter education is so important. And I think the more of that we can do, I think the more successful we'll be. And I know it's a multi-step process, like you're talking about. I mean, we have to be able to register all these voters, engage so many. It's going to take a while. But I think if something that I always take away from talking to people, voter education, when you can basically effectively break down all these issues. And like you said, we're the party of healthcare. We're the party of a fair immigration system, not just throwing people in jail, right? We're the party of civil rights, human rights, people rights, a women's right to choose, all of these things. And so I think that like when you can talk to people and like you said, not make it too national because these local issues are going to affect them, right? And I mean a lot of the stuff that your city council's doing, a lot of the stuff that your state legislators doing. So yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on that. And so yes, okay. So let's shift speaking of the national, so let's shift towards the 2024 election and national picture. The Biden Harris administration had record achievements that benefited young Americans. We saw unemployment go down to 4%. The Inflation Reduction Act was the largest climate legislation in history. It put $12 billion into incentives for electric vehicles. Over 5 million Americans got their student loans forgiven. Despite all these accomplishments, voters ages 18 through 29 shifted 10 points towards Trump between 20 and 24. Overall youth voter turnout was down 10%. Only 42% of young voters voted in the 2024 election, And if you rewind back to 2016, 39% voted. So it was around 50, 51, 52 in 2020. Voters in this age bracket made up 14% of the voting electorate. So we saw young voters turned out at a much higher rate in 2020, right? And we were able to win. Democrats won, right? It was down 10%. It was way down in 2016. So I think you can see young voters and young adults are critical to us winning, right? And they make up 14% of the electorate. So you're one of the leaders in this country of young voters, my friend. So I'm glad we got you here. So you can answer these questions. I can't answer them. So that's why we're thrilled you're here. Okay. So we saw youth voting down in 2024 and a huge trend towards Trump. As a young adult who's been on the front lines, why did your generation shift to Trump and not turn out in the last election, in your opinion?
Well, I got a unique front row seat to all of this in 2024 because I was a young candidate for Arkansas State House in
Yes,
2024.
exactly.
And I knocked personally 2,000 doors in my campaign. We knocked about
It's
11,000 doors in the
impressive.
ball.
Wow.
And so I was able to have conversations with people young and old.
Okay.
And even across age groups, the same sentiment I got was that people feel pain. People
Yeah.
feel higher prices. People
Yep.
feel that tightness in their budgets and in their pocketbooks. But the federal government and their elected leaders and their representatives continued to tell them that everything was fine and that it was not as bad as it actually was. And that, maybe if you just find some clever workarounds, it will work instead of we need profound policy change.
Yeah.
I think, there's the old saying, don't piss on my boots and tell me it's raining. There's that old saying, but it's true. It's applicable to voters.
Oh, absolutely.
People like to disparage voters all the time, but voters are not stupid. Or at the
Nope.
very least, they have a good sense of what they're going through. And if they don't feel as though they're doing well financially, there is nothing
Yeah.
you can tell them to convince them otherwise. And so I think that was one of the
Hmm.
first critical failures. We should have said, yes, inflation is real. Yes, this sticker shock at the grocery store is real.
Hmm.
And we're going to do X, Y, and Z to fix it, as
Yeah.
opposed to pretending it wasn't even a concern. So I think that was a problem. And, for a generation like mine that has grown up, seeing politics dominated by old guys in
Hmm.
suits who, make a salary by lying for a living. I
Hmm.
mean, that doesn't inspire much confidence. And so, especially with our generation that is
Sure.
slated to have a lower standard of living than the generations that came before ours.
Right.
Myself and many others in my generation will probably not be homeowners for for many more years to come. We're not going to be able to have the wealth and assets and savings that previous generations have,
Hmm.
and our wages are not going up generationally. And
Yeah.
we were grown up, we grew up being told by counselors and our parents and everything that we have to go to college and get a college education. But now we
Yeah.
have an economy where like what, half of graduates don't even get a job in the field they studied for.
If that.
And so when you have all of these pressures as you're
Yeah.
coming into the world and you're looking at who you're going to vote for, you're
Yeah.
going to look at the guy instead who's going to say, "Yeah, your groceries are damn high and I'm going to
I'm
make
gonna do
them
something
go down."
about it. Yeah.
He, you know, Trump identified a problem. He had a
Yeah.
terrible solution to the problem. He said,
Yeah.
blame immigrants, blame poor people, blame anyone else except the people who are actually causing the problem. But
Yeah.
because he identified the problem at the very least, that drew people to him.
Yeah, absolutely. He identified the problem and he really spoke on it. And I think we talked about Bidenomics in 2024, right? It's working and everything. But like you said, people weren't feeling that. They were feeling pain. And I think he hit a strategy whereas we were saying, well, things aren't as bad and everything. But when you feel it, it's different. Like I can't tell you what you're feeling, right?
Mhm.
And so, like you said, we should have been more honest in our messaging. Hey, things aren't good right now. We've done all this stuff. We're trying to bring inflation down and everything, but it takes years to do. A lot of it was caused from COVID, from supply and demand and everything. But we should have been able to put that message out there, like you said, and just instead of saying, "Well, everything's good," you need to vote for us again because Trump was seeing what we were doing, and I think he was reacting to that, right? And like you said, he identified the problem, and I think he hit it, unfortunately. So, yeah, I don't know. Thanks for your input on that. That's very valuable. Okay, so this is a question that I think I've always wondered, and I'm in my mid 40s, so I can't relate to somebody in their 20s on this issue. But why do you think so many people do not associate with the Democratic Party, but they love some of our leaders, right? AOC, Mayor Pete, Elizabeth Warren, they're in the progressive kind of block, but they like Democrats, they like some of those Democrats, but they don't think the Democratic Party represents them. So why do you think that is?
Well, before I touch on the Democratic Party specifically, I will say,
Yeah,
most people aren't a part of any
right.
political party. Even most people who vote Republican every 2 or 4 years do not consider themselves members of the Republican Party. Like,
Very
most
true.
people aren't even registered as Democrats or Republicans. They just like align with whatever direction the wind is blowing sometimes, from
Right.
election to election.
Yeah.
So most people do not identify actually with either political party, which is a whole
Yeah.
other discussion in itself.
Yeah.
But so, the Democratic Party, I think, is naturally supposed to be the left wing party.
Yeah.
Thinking of the very narrowed spectrum of American politics, we're supposed to be the left hand party and the Republicans the right.
Right.
But at least in my opinion, we have not really been living up to a lot of those things that our base hopes to see from our leaders. They want to see us
Yeah.
going to bat for healthcare in a stronger way and not offer just like tepid compromises. They want to
Yeah.
see us preserve social safety net programs, like
Yeah.
Social Security, SNAP, WIC, Medicaid, which they
Yeah.
do for the most
Yeah.
part, or at least they'll offer lip service.
Yeah.
They, nowadays they want to see, stronger resistance to Trump
Yeah.
because, the Democratic Party went through 2024 saying that Trump is going to be a dictator, he's a Nazi, he's a fascist. But
Yeah.
then, once he's actually in power, you turn around and you work with him and you collaborate with him and you
Yeah.
make deals with him. And it's like,
Yeah.
wait, I thought a year ago he was Hitler. Why are we
Right.
now cutting deals with
Right.
someone? So that's a Pandora's box that once you open it,
Yeah.
it's like they were Nazis a year ago and now we're going to work with them. So
Yeah.
that's something you can't put back in the bag. And so I think
Right.
it's, most Americans see the two-party system, the party's in power, messes up, and then the party out of power takes power back again. And, it's like this politics of annihilation. Both
Yeah.
sides are an existential threat to us and the country. But
Yeah.
no matter what happens, we're all gonna, when the cameras are shut off, we're all gonna go home and be friends, or we're all gonna go hang
Yeah.
out and get drinks at the country club later. And like I
Yeah.
said earlier, the average voter is not stupid. They see that, the Democrats and the Republicans sometimes are on the same side. Or,
Yeah.
there isn't the distinction that you would expect to see between people whose rhetoric is so combative, but their
Right.
actions are often so conciliatory. And
Yeah.
so people just see it more as theater
Yeah.
and
Okay.
drama as
Yeah.
opposed to what it's supposed to be. Politics is supposed to be about our lives and
Sure.
bettering them
Yeah.
and
Working for the people.
working for the people and achieving
Yeah.
prosperity and protecting us.
Yeah.
But if it's just this back and forth melodrama where they're Nazis and we're communists and
Theater. Political theater.
the other side is going to destroy the country,
Yeah.
who is going to want to participate in that?
Right.
And the Democrats are just as guilty of that as the Republicans.
So you think there's too much theatrics, basically, and also not enough just straight representing the people, because what you're saying, like what they're saying, they're not doing so much because they're villainizing Trump, but then they're going behind and working with them, and there's all this back and forth. But when it comes down to it, right, and an average person isn't going to be like, they don't want that. So that's kind of what you're saying.
Yeah, if you're going to fight,
Yeah.
then fight, damn it.
Yeah. 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 Exactly. Yeah. 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 I mean, do you think that young people, like a lot of them, think the Democratic Party is out of touch?
Uh, I think they probably think that with both parties because
Both
we
parties.
we don't see ourselves represented really in the
Yeah.
Democratic Party leadership. Definitely at the national level, we don't see
Yeah.
Gen Z or even Gen X represented among our political
Yeah.
leadership. Here in the
Yeah.
state of Arkansas, there's still a tension between older
Yeah.
and younger Democrats. So how are you gonna feel attached to a party you can't even see yourself in?
That's a very good point. Yeah. So I think that representation is a big thing. And I think that's why so many people love some of these leaders like AOC, right? Or Jasmine Crockett. Like Jasmine Crockett spoke at the DNC convention and she was straight fire. I mean, she was just putting it out and everything in congressional hearings. And when I talk to Democrats and young people, they're like, oh my gosh, Jasmine Crockett is amazing because she's not backing down and she's just taking it to them. And so, like, I think like you said, people want to see them get represented. But if you don't see representation that you don't think is actually like fighting for you, then yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because it's like we're just. I think a lot of people assume people who lean left will vote Democrats because they're not the evil of Republicans, but they're not just going to vote in general, right? Just because we're Democrats.
Right. Well, in all my now, what is it, 11 years of doing Democratic politics, I've seen
Hmm.
the central stigma of our party is that
Yeah.
we only come around every 2 years to beg for
Hmm.
votes. And then you
Yeah.
never hear from us unless we're
Yep.
asking for
Nope.
money. And that is just like, that's not sustainable if you're trying to be a party that has longevity and actually roots in the community.
Oh, not at all. Yeah, and that's one of the biggest things I've seen too, especially in a lot of these states, these big ones, South Carolina, which is a presidential primary state, and some of these other ones, Georgia, they don't like us just showing up every 2 years, right? Because they know what we're there for. They're not stupid. And so if we're not taking time to invest in the community and just asking them for votes, I think that's a problem. And I think that's one of the biggest problems of our party right now. We have to invest year round and show people we actually care, right? We can't just care when we want votes. We have to care all the time. And when we have $1 billion in a presidential election, we should be there year round, right? I mean, don't you agree?
If I had $1 billion as a candidate, I would have been feeding people. I would have been clothing people. I would
Yeah.
have been building parks. Who cares? Whatever it takes to like help people.
Oh, well, sure. Yeah, exactly. Instead of like maybe paying all these high tech staffers and all these people to sit in a room and analyze data, think of all that money you could put into the community, right? Think how many community programs you could start. Think how many people you could actually help, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Until people see us associated with their day-to-day problems, they're going to keep seeing us as some kind of like other political class as opposed to
Yes.
members of their community.
Yes. No, I couldn't agree with you more on that. And I hope that we can start working towards that. And I'm so glad that you're working on that in Arkansas, right? With all the stuff you're doing, feeding people and renters' rights and everything. And I think that anybody who's doing that is doing the right thing. So yeah, and but that is a big problem. We want to be able to identify these problems so we can come up with a solution. So yeah, so thank you for sharing that. So next question. What do you think the biggest mistakes that Democrats make with young voters? Like, if in general, right? So, you're going to see when you see people come around and they're coming up and asking young voters, like they're coming to a college campus and it's not a young person, right? But it's somebody from the Democratic Party. Let's say I'm a staffer and I'm coming to University of Arkansas at Fayetteville, right? And I'm
Mhm.
coming around and I'm talking to these young voters and everything, and you see somebody like that, what do you think is the biggest mistake? Is it the fact that they're not a young person trying to engage a young person, or what do you think it is?
Well, some people off the bat might think that you need a young person to engage a young person. That's not
Mm-hmm.
always the case. I've seen
Okay.
some like really outgoing, energetic people in their 60s and 70s, like really strike up conversations with young
Okay.
people and
Okay.
register them to vote. I think it's
Yeah.
more about like your the way that you're actually presenting yourself and the way you
Yeah.
carry yourself.
Yeah.
If you're young people are always on the go, and so if you're able to match that energy, I think they're going
Yeah.
to be more receptive to you. I think
Okay.
also, there's an assumption that based on our youth we're all green and naive and things like that, which is
Sure.
young people do need careful training and to be exposed to different aspects of political life, because
Yeah.
that's important, and it is important for older generations to pass
Right.
it on to us,
Yeah.
because we're all living in the same world.
Yeah.
However, the other problem is that they anytime a young person walks into the Democratic Party, all of the older people immediately latch onto them. because they,
Yes.
it's like, oh, young person, because they're looking for somebody to help run their social media
Yes.
or run their volunteer outreach or do some other task that a young person could probably fulfill well. But the
Right.
problem is, it's always, just an expectation that they'll do
Yeah.
that unpaid.
Yeah.
A lot of the time there would be unpaid internships. I do believe the age of the unpaid internship is coming to an end. You have
Okay.
to compensate people some way or somehow, even if it's part time or
Yeah.
a stipend or whatever. I think, just assuming you can get young people to run your tech for you or set up your Zoom links, I think,
Yeah.
that will sometimes drive young people away because you're just seen as, free, cheap labor. And
Yeah.
then when you ask for a seat at the table, sometimes you're given the cold shoulder.
Yeah.
And so it's like, man, we're doing everything for this party. And then we're going out to knock doors for candidates and,
Right.
struggle to help win these elections. And then we're not even given an opportunity to have a say. And so I
Exactly.
think, those that are not infuriated and really pissed off by that treatment will
Yeah.
just leave.
Yeah. Okay. So it's kind of a combination of a few things then. I mean, but you definitely think energy and being relatable, it doesn't matter how old you are, but you can be effective, right? I mean, you can be older and effective, correct? You think? Like talking to
Absolutely.
young voters?
That's what got Bernie. That's why I knocked doors for Bernie Sanders
Bernie
before I was even
Sanders.
18.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I think compensation for people who are out there doing the work, right? Try to give them decision making power, right? Like you said, make them a part of the process.
Yeah. Well, also, thinking about the energy point, you don't need to, necessarily be like a high energy person yourself. You can
Yeah,
project energy by having bold policies. You
right.
know, Bernie was Medicare for all. Every single person deserves health care. It doesn't matter how much money they have. And, every single billionaire needs to get out of politics. And, these
Yeah,
big, bold, visionary things that, project movement and vitality and progress. I
yeah,
mean, that inspired me to knock doors way more than somebody who would be like, well, we just need to have some kind of public private option for healthcare. We need to
sure.
have some kind of lukewarm approach as opposed to some kind of
Yeah,
bold policy that's going to actually shake
right.
things up.
Yeah, okay. I think being putting passion behind it like you said, but I think when you look at Bernie Sanders, he's always able to deliver on that stuff, right? And he's the oldest, one of our oldest senators in America, one of our oldest leaders, and for him to be able to do that and have that energy is incredible. But yeah, that really speaks to a lot of the things. Like, so you're going to listen way more to somebody who is going to put so much of their energy behind it, but so much passion behind it and everything, versus somebody who's just going to just like feel like they're just reading off talking points.
Oh yeah. Well,
Yeah,
politics is real. These are people's actual lives when it comes
yeah,
to healthcare. When I was running, housing was like my number one issue. I was a man on fire
yeah.
campaigning for housing and renters' rights. And that was infectious to people.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Okay, thank you so much for that. So with this question right here, it kind of is a segue, and it kind of goes back to the last one a little bit, but does the Democratic Party have a message problem or a messenger problem? And I think we kind of hit the messenger problem on the last one. But do you think we have a problem with messaging?
Mm, I think sometimes yes, because
Yeah,
we project ourselves as a big
yeah,
tent party. We're
yeah,
somehow the party of Joe Biden and AOC and Bernie Sanders and people in the middle of that, and also to the far extremes of that too.
yeah,
Also, and so how if you put a microphone to my face and asked me what the values of the Democratic Party are, actually, I would be very hard pressed
right.
because it's such a hodgepodge of people that
Yeah,
the certainty in that message that you have with the Republicans is just not there, really.
right,
And so, because we cannot get it straight as to what our actual values and policy positions are, and because we're constantly trying to cater to each of the different factions within the party at all
very true.
times, That
Yeah.
means that we can never have a cohesive voice as a
Yeah.
party, and that we are constantly going to be this fractious group of people
Yeah.
that, frankly, doesn't get anything done sometimes. And I think that's part of the problem, because it's like, because you don't have a universal message, you have to
Yeah.
try to tailor your message to every individual group of people, and that makes
Right.
you look disingenuous. It's
Yeah.
I think it's better to have one strong universal message that
Yeah.
could be cross applied to any group of people.
Yeah. That's a very smart statement, and I think you do see that quite a bit in our party, right? We'll have 9 or 10 different things, but you can't really have that effective of a message if you're saying this, and this, because people's heads are going to kind of spin a little bit, right? Then they're going to say, okay, well, what are you actually standing for? And so, do you think young voters respond better if you just have one message, like you're saying, or a couple versus like 10? So, if I came up to you, right, you're not Billy Cook, but you're a student. I said, hey, John, I'm a Democrat. We'd love for you to join us. We'd love for you to vote for us. We stand for universal health care. We want to fight climate change. We stand for women's rights. We stand for a fair immigration system. We stand for free, free colleges. Not and I name off set 3 or 4 of the things versus naming 1 or 2 things. Do you think the 1 or 2 things works better?
I do in some ways, because
Yeah,
that long list of issues you just read off, to me at some point it's going to feel like homework, that I'm going to
yeah,
have to try to
yeah, yeah,
understand all
yeah,
of this.
yeah. Okay, yeah, very true. Okay. Um, So, what are the biggest changes the Democratic Party needs to make in order to win over young voters, in your opinion? Just as a young voter, right? And you've been around thousands of young voters, but in your opinion, like through different lenses, right? As a voter, but also as a activist, and also as the president of the Young Democrats, what are some changes that our party needs to make?
Are you referring to the state of Arkansas or nationally,
No,
or?
like national. You can do. I mean, you start with national.
Yeah. Well, first, we need to actually invest in the youth wings of the Democratic Party. We have the Young
Yes.
Democrats of America,
Yeah.
we have
Okay.
the College Democrats of America, and we have the High
Okay.
School Democrats of America, all of which
Okay.
are technically three distinct, separate organizations.
Okay.
I think first things first, like how we have it here in Arkansas, the
Yeah.
high schools, colleges, and Young Democrats of America should combine once again into one large national youth democratic organization,
Okay.
like the Young Democrats of Arkansas operate under that model, and it's great.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then the DNC needs to turn around and fund the hell out of that thing, instead of trying to
Okay.
come up and with new initiatives and reinvent the wheel and say,
Yeah.
Young Democrats of America, we're going to give you grants to go out and hire organizers, youth
Yeah.
organizers, or we're going to give you money to do voter registration, or whatever initiative that's targeted towards young people, and that's
Yeah.
your charge. Then we're also going to make sure that you have seats on the DNC. We're going to make sure that you have seats on executive committees in your state organizations. We're going to make
Okay.
sure that young people have a seat and a voice at the table, because you're not just the foot soldiers of the Democratic Party. You
Yeah.
are the here and now, the future, and the
Oh, the
present.
future. Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, and so I think that would solve a lot of our problems in terms of
Yeah.
organization.
Okay.
I think we also need to actually decide what we believe in as a party, and have a message that paints a bold future for young people, so we have
Right.
something to look forward to, as opposed to this, which
Yeah.
this is fine or whatever, but I would like to be able to own a home, or be
Yeah.
able to afford health care, or be able to have enough money to travel, or whatever it is, and
Yeah.
not have to struggle like people are. So I would like
Okay.
to have a Democratic Party that paints a good future for me and other young people. I think, and that's the core of messaging, I think.
Yeah. The core of messaging. Exactly. And I think that's why President Obama was always able to inspire so many young people and just people in general, but he was so good at creating hope for people, right? And I think that you really made a good point. People want to have something to kind of look forward to. So if we just keep talking about the past, or if we just keep talking about the same ideas, is that going to really inspire young people, or is it going to inspire people in general, right? And if we don't really have a centralized message and we're kind of all over the place, then you can see why people would get kind of worn out in the process. So, yeah, I can see that. Okay, so let's say you can talk right now to Ken Martin. What is the one thing that the head of the DNC? I know you've met him before, and you might have already told him this, but what is the one thing you would tell him in order to like? What is the one thing you would tell him that he needs to do in order to boost young Democrats across the country?
Actually invest in these organizations.
Okay, there
Um,
we go.
or, I know they're investing now also. They have like a youth council and things like that
Yeah,
at the DNC, but invest more. Invest more
gotcha.
because I would also tell them that at least here in Arkansas and other places, I see a real demographic crisis in the Democratic Party as a whole. It
Okay,
is, you can go to any county party meeting or any large meeting of Democrats that's not, for young people explicitly. And it's
sure.
all mainly people in their 60s, 70s, and 80s plus.
Yep, yep,
And that's part of why I've been going around is because if we let this situation persist for many more years where we have only older people in the party, we will
yeah,
see a drop off. And the demographics of the party will become sort of pear shaped in a way, and we won't
yeah,
actually have that missing middle of people to
sure.
to take over the leadership of the party once all of the older folks leave or pass away or whatever it is. And
Yeah.
then we're going to have an age crisis in the party, and there's going to be nobody left unless we get young people in the door now, because we can't wait 5 or 10 years, I think. And that goes for Arkansas and across the country.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, you're gonna have a major age gap and you're gonna have all types of issues and everything. And I'm so glad that you're doing this. I mean, like I'm so glad you're going around the state and visiting all these counties and everything. And I know you've been to Sebastian County, and I was glad to see other young people there with you, right? And that's one of the things that we try to work on. And it makes me feel good as a 40 something person who's been working on Sebastian County for a few years, working in Arkansas and working across the country. But it's great to see these young organizations, working and trying to bring in new people and everything. So that's terrific. So last question, can you talk about the importance of young people voting and getting involved in the process? So this would be like a field pitch to listeners all over the country, people in California, South Carolina, Arkansas, all across America. Young people are going to be listening to this podcast. So can you do a pitch for them and talk about why it's important to get out and vote and volunteer?
Yeah. If every single person who said that their vote doesn't count actually stood up and went out to vote, we would change this country overnight. Think about that.
Yeah,
And there are elections in Arkansas that are decided by 10 votes, 20 votes, 30 votes. Do you think that we could not have gotten some people, 10 people who said their vote didn't count, to go out and flip that seat or change that election or get someone who will give a damn and fight for us in there if we didn't just get up and go vote? Now, I'm also not one who blames voters. It is important for the campaigns and the parties to do their jobs and educate people, but also we need to get up and go vote. Uh, and the party system historically has created barriers that prevent people from voting. But if you can crawl or run or walk or whatever to get to vote, we've got to do it, because there are elections that can be won if people get up and go. And if you get somebody elected to city council to fight for you, you can have them run for a county position or a state position or a federal position, and you can keep that fighter in if you just get up and go vote for them.
yeah, absolutely. And I think at the local level, you talked about that, and I put up those numbers on the national level, right? Where voters ages 18 through 29 made up 14% of the electorate in 2024, right? And so we saw young people didn't vote in 2016 and 2024, and we lost. Young people came out in 2020 and we won. And then look at the differences in these administration, right? I mean, immigration, it's heartbreaking to see all this. And that's one of the reasons that's a result of our side not voting and just basically people not, for whatever reason. So, okay, so thank you so much for that. So let's finish this discussion in Minneapolis because it's such a serious topic right now. What are your basic thoughts on it? about everything that's happened, about the two people, the two tragedies where people got murdered. What do you think about it all?
Obviously, it is a tragedy to see, a taxpayer funded federal entity gun
Yeah,
people down
yeah,
without trial or without, any iota of a pretense, actually.
yeah,
And that's extremely frightening and concerning to see that that is just becoming normal.
yeah,
But also, I will say, historically, this country has done that sort of thing to black and brown people throughout its
yeah.
entire history.
Sure.
And to certain communities, scenes like that are just business as usual, as
Yeah,
horrific as it is to say about the history of the United States. As someone who has studied history throughout my life,
yeah,
it's no surprise that our country would behave like this. We've always had, in some way, a penchant for violence against
yeah,
one group or another.
yeah,
Often used as scapegoats for national issues. This
yeah,
time around, it's immigrants again and people who support them.
yeah,
Um, I think, I do get a little frustrated when I see so many people say, well, this isn't us. This isn't us as a country. Because now we're saying this isn't us every week now, it
right.
seems. And so it's like, at what point are we going to say, yes, this is us, and
Yeah.
we are responsible to stop being this?
Yes. And I think we all should have some accountability to get out there and play a part in doing something about it, right? Showing up to protest, showing up to volunteer, showing up to speak out, but don't just be complicit. And I know you've been out there, I've been out there protesting and everything. And I think getting more people engaged in the process and just basically getting as many people together to speak out against this, because I think you can see power in numbers, and the more people that see other people out here stepping up and not being afraid to get out there and stand up against this is very important. So, and yeah, and we're not going to be quiet. We're going to fight back, and this is one of the ways we're going to do it. This podcast right here is going to reach people all over the country to get up, to get active, to get out and vote, to get out and volunteer and everything. So, any final thoughts, Billy? Do you have any like final words for the listeners?
Uh, you know, we're all on a spectrum of involvement.
Yeah,
Most people don't get involved and don't vote, and then
yeah,
the craziest among us are on the opposite end of the spectrum. Those are the
yeah,
people who run for office and run the
yeah,
Democratic Party and do all of those things. And
yeah,
every single person is somewhere on that spectrum. You are
yes,
either one of those lunatics who runs for office, or you're one of those people who doesn't do anything, or you're
yeah,
somewhere in between. The
yeah,
people who vote and mean well are probably smack dab in the middle of that spectrum. I
yeah,
think our goal, our mission as all of us, is to go out and find the people that we can take from one end of the spectrum of non activity
yeah,
to bring them however we can to the other end so that
yeah,
they're voting, so they're getting other people to vote, and so that
yeah.
they're standing up and saying, yeah, I'm going to run for office because my community deserves better. And so that is the responsibility of each and every one of us. An organization like the Young Democrats, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask people to also donate to the Young Democrats of Arkansas and support our work at ydarkansas.org.
Absolutely. And I can definitely vouch for that organization and for Billy. And he's somebody who's been doing the work, and he didn't just show up. I met him, I guess, 3 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, and when we were both vice chair of our county parties. And he's one of the most active young Democrats I've met across the country. So I'm so thankful he was here today, and I'm so happy that we're able to have this episode. So we will pop on a little music. And we want all the listeners out there to join us in the fight. You can come with us at changeforthepeople.com. We are on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, all the social media platforms. But we want to really get out here and empower people. We want to inspire them. We want to engage them, but we want to uplift their voices. So we want to be in these communities, and we want to create people power. We don't want to just show up for the elections. We want to be able to change the way we're doing things like we talked about. And so join us. We hope to see you for another episode, and we hope to see you out there in the community, in the field, because we're going to be out here all across the country talking to people and building power and fighting for the people. So thank you for joining us.